Well, if you're on the website, then you'll be looking at all the pages through there, and what we've done is decided to make a little video to try and help people with really basic inquiries. And we're just going to look at the fascia panel itself on the Turbomax boiler. It's pretty much straightforward through all out the whole range. The Ecomax obviously has more of a liquid crystal display, but this is probably the most common boiler, certainly installed between 2000 and 2005, and probably the most calls we get are about this type of boiler. So we're going to have a look at this and make a few, hopefully make a bit of myth busting, if you like. If we look at the basic control panel here, it's very straightforward. On the right hand side we see we have a pressure gauge, and it's very important you keep an eye on this because this indicator tells us how much water is actually in the system. We have two thermostats, here and here. At the bottom left, this is the central heating thermostat. This controls the temperature of the water going out to your radiators. And the thermostat above that, which is this one here, with the little tap sign, that indicates that that is your hot water temperature. We also have a control panel here with 4 buttons and a digital display. Below that we have 3 neons, green, amber and red, and we're just going to chat about those in a minute. Going back to our pressure gauge, this actually tells us how much water is in the heating system and in the boiler itself. If this drops down to 0, it's going to cause you a lot of problems. So it's always a good idea to keep manufacturer's instructions handy so that we can have a look through and see how we actually charge the system up. Hopefully if we get time we're going to make a very short, very quick video just on how to do that to try and save you some time. And it can be a bit tricky. So that's your pressure gauge. We're hoping to see that black needle there somewhere in the region of that green bar on the right hand side. Preferably, we don't really want to see it above 1 bar, 1.2 bar. You're just putting the system under excess pressure and it isn't really required. If you find your needles going up towards the 3, that indicates maybe you've either overpressured the system or you could have a problem with the expansion vessel, which is installed behind the back of the boiler as a part of the boiler. And if it's continuously running up that high, especially with central heating's on, that would indicate that there's something wrong with the vessel or it needs repressuring. Now that's not a major problem or a major issue at the moment, but later on that could prove quite expensive and could cause you a lot of grief. So if you do find that, it's worth giving someone a call. This control knob is very simple, 1, 0. It's either on or it's off. This is the power control for the boiler. This is a secondary control actually on the boiler, away from the 3 amp fuse spur, socket or plug or whatever it is, the power source that's actually feeding the boiler. So even though you've got it switched on here, you will need to have it on switched on here. Now, an easy way of telling whether the boiler's actually got power going to it or whether this is turned on is by looking at the very small liquid crystal display situated here. And at the moment it's telling me there's 25 degrees. Now a lot of people get confused with this. Now this isn't an indicator of your hot water temperature, it's not an indicator of your heating temperature or room temperatures. This is directly connected via this NTC or thermistor at the top of the heat exchanger. And all that is telling us is how hot or the temperature of this pipe coming out of the boiler. Now that's not a lot of good to you, but it's very useful for us, which is why it's there. Now the only really thing that a consumer could use that for maybe is just to see if there is actually electricity going to the boiler. If I was to turn the power off, the display goes blank. So obviously there is no electricity now going or feeding into the boiler. So I'm going to turn that back on so we can carry on. Heating thermostat, hot water thermostat. Very simple. I simply turn the thermostat up to the temperature I want for my hot water and adjust it as required depending on how much water I'm drawing off and how hot I want it. The central heating thermostat, if I turn this up, I'm not going to do it because the boiler will come on, but if I turn that up, that actually controls the temperature of the water going to the radiators. Okay? If I turn it down very low, the radiators won't get very hot. If I turn it up very high, the radiators will get extremely hot. But it doesn't control the temperature of the room or the house. Okay? This just controls the temperature of the water that comes out of the boiler. So it's a control, but not really a good control. Now the one thing I do want to mention, because we get a lot of problems with this, do you find your boiler keeps coming on for no reason in the middle of the night? If you do, you'll find that's because it's got the warm start on, or what they would call a warm start, but what most of us would call a preheat. Probably the easiest way of describing it. And the Germans fit their boilers outdoors, which means when they run the hot water from one of this type of boiler, it takes an awful long time for the hot water to get from the boiler to your tap. So what they do is they build in what's called a preheat. That means the boiler is continuously monitoring the temperature of the internal sections, and it will fire up to maintain a continuous temperature so that when you run the tap it doesn't take quite so long for the water to get to your tap at a decent temperature. Which is all well and good if your boiler's miles away, but if it's indoors in a house in the UK, it really hasn't got to travel that far. And what happens is you're running gas and running the boiler all hours of the day and all hours of the night, pretty much for no reason whatsoever. Now it's very easy to tell whether the warm start's on. If I look at the three neons, green neon, that just tells me, well, at the moment there's nothing happening at all. But if I also run the hot water tap, green neon starts to flash and the boiler fires up hot water demand. Now when that neon flashes, that's just basically telling the boiler and telling us that there is a demand for hot water. If this is on and constantly, and if I turn this thermostat all the way up, if I let it go, the light will remain on constantly once the boiler is shut down, indicating that the warm start is in operation. Now we don't want the warm start in operation, we're trying to turn it off. It's very simple to do. To operate it or to get the facility to come on, I turn the thermostat as far around as possible and then turn it back to where I set the thermostat to. If I want to knock it off, I simply turn it back that way as far as it will go, and the green light goes off, and then I can set my thermostat back to where I want. Don't forget to turn it back because you won't get any hot water. So basically that's your warm start. All the other controls are very, very simple. If there's a problem with the boiler, the display will come up with an F code, and that will be readable out of the manufacturer's instructions, and it will come up with F22, F28, some other code telling you or giving you an idea of where the problem is. The amber light, when that comes on, is just simply indicating that there's gas burning. It tells you that the burner is actually alight and the boiler is functioning and running. If you get an F code, you will get the red neon. And if you get the red neon, it's telling you there's something or a serious fault somewhere on the boiler. Now this may be a temporary glitch. So if you do get a temporary glitch, you simply push in the top left hand button, wait a few seconds and release. The boiler will go into self-diagnostic mode for a few seconds, which is what it's doing now, and then it will reset itself. Obviously if you can't reset it or it continually goes to F or lockout or the red neon comes on, you've got a serious problem. So get someone in who knows what they're doing, and preferably someone who's been Valent trained, because they can be a bit tricky. Well, I hope that's been some use. Don't worry, if you get any problems you can always drop me an email. I'll always get back to you sometime or other, and if you really need some, or if you're desperate for some help, by all means give us a call, and either myself or Joe or Mike will come out to see you and hopefully get you fixed up as soon as possible. Well, I hope that's been useful. Me and my mate Chris are going to have a cup of tea. See you later on.